Pray. So last week, we started a little bit of a journey together, and I was sharing with everybody that this time of year, there's this inner calling for me to go even deeper into my own spiritual path and my own spiritual journey. And I was sharing with everybody a book that's called The Way of Mastery. And it's been something that I've been studying over the last 8 months with a book club, and I've just found it to be incredibly special to me. And so I wanted to share some lessons from that book. And as I was reminding everybody, the book is broken down into 3 different chapters, 3 sections. In the first section, it's called The Way of the Heart. The second section is called The Way of Transformation. And the third section is called The Way of Knowing. And for those that don't know, it's a book that was given to us, very special, by Jesus. And yes, my belief is that Jesus is still around. He hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, if anything, he's got louder and stronger and more powerful than ever before. In my opinion, he's right here, right now. And as a result of it, there's been some beautiful teachings in this book that he's shared. And I felt like that was something that I wanted to share with everybody. And so last week, what I talked about in The Way of the Heart, we discussed something that was called the mind of the Christ. Now, this shouldn't be anything new to Unity people, because certainly the Fillmores talked about the Christ mind, this thing that's within us, every single one of us, and that it's the ability to basically call something that's within us, that when we call on it, we actually have the ability to connect with our own divinity, and we can come from, if you will, we can connect with this mind, this special thing called the mind of the Christ. It's the same thing that Jesus did. It's the same thing that he called on, and he actually, what I said last week, was it was almost like he had a different operating system. And that when you really study him, the way that he thought is what made him so unique and different. It was amazing. And Jesus basically told us, oh, by the way, you all have it. And really what it comes down to is a choice. Do you want to use it or not? You have to understand something. Unlike what is told to us in traditional ways, it's not like this thing is going to be forced on you. It is not. Never. That's not the way that it works, nor has it ever been the way that it works. It's something that is there. It's something that is a part of you. But it's something that you have to actually decide to do something with. That's how it works. So the Christ mind, this piece is there. Jesus talked about it. Well, Jesus, in my opinion, showed us how to do it. The Fillmores taught us about it, and then they showed us how to do it. And that's how it works. And my hope and prayer for these lessons that I'm sharing with you is that you'll feel this. You'll feel the Christ mind. Because again, it's not just here that we're talking about. It's actually feeling it here, and then what do you do with it? Well, how about taking it out into the world and sharing it with people? How about actually expressing this thing called divine love and sharing it with those around you? How about just beaming? Did you know you can do that? Did you know that you can align with your own divinity and then just walk around and just bless everybody? How cool is that? What a gift. What an amazing gift that we all have. And it's there. But for some reason, I don't know why, I can guess, we're not taught that. Generally. But I think Unity does a pretty good job. And so we take these lessons from this amazing master, and this lesson in this section is called, You Are Unlimited Spirit. You are unlimited spirit. And Jesus starts off by saying, in truth, you're pure spirit. In truth, you are as I am. Jesus always acknowledged everybody's divinity. He never saw there or understood there to be a separation, ever. In truth, that which you are abides throughout all dimensions of consciousness. In other words, I am exists everywhere. Christ consciousness, Christ mind bypasses everything. It exists everywhere. And then he says, in truth, that what you are has never tasted separation from God. Feel that. Just feel it. In truth, you have never tasted separation from God. That's a truth. And yet, what's our experience? Our experience is we actually do live and feel like we're separate from God. Why? Why does that happen? Well, because society has taught us that we are. And guess what? We believed it. Hook, line, and sinker. We believed it. We believed that we were separate from God. And guess what? We don't have to. You don't have to. You can make a decision that says, no. I am not separate from God. You can do that. And then when you do that, all of a sudden stuff starts to change, right? Jesus goes on to say, there is an aspect of you that has chosen to perceive yourself as identified with the physical body in your third dimensional reality called space and time. So in other words, we get caught up in it, right? We became a part of this third dimensional reality, and we don't know any better. So guess what? We start doing stuff like this. Hug, we touch, we feel. But you have to understand something. What Jesus knew is you're multidimensional. You're way more than what's going on in this physical body, way more. And Jesus understood it, right? And then he goes on to say, but when I speak of self, I speak not of the self which is a dream of the body, the self which you have identified yourself with. Rather, I speak of the self that transcends all limitations and exists in all dimensions. In other words, Jesus saying, hey folks, get over it. You are way more than what you're seeing. Way more. Can you just feel that for a second? Just feel it. I was at a seminar yesterday, and the most amazing thing happened. Anybody see dowsing rods? Anybody ever seen how those things work? They're fascinating. And what was so interesting, the person had some dowsing rods, and she had somebody stand on the other side of the room. And she just walked up to this person, and the dowsing rods were sticking out like this. And as she got closer, she got within about 2 or 3 feet, the dowsing rod started going, ring, king. And you could see where the person's energetic field was. You can measure it. You can see it, right? The thing that was fascinating, she goes, so here's what I want you to do now. I want you to shut that off. So mentally, I want you to shut off your energetic field. She does it, and remember, she's holding a rod that's got this little thing on it, and it just turns. She's not doing anything. The rods are doing it. The rods are picking up on that person's energy, right? And she goes, okay, shut it off. And as she walks closer and closer and closer and closer and closer, she's finally standing right next to him. The rods are not moving. They're not moving, right? She said, okay. She goes, and now she's back across the room. She goes, okay, now I want you to do this. I want you to send me love. Send me love. And she was on the other side of the room, and you watch the rods go whoosh. Just like that. We are way more than we understand ourselves to be. But we're not taught that. We're not told it. We don't practice it. We don't play with it. We don't engage with it. And so guess what happens? You don't get the experience of it. But you can. You can. We all can. Jesus says, so in other words, we all have another part of us that is more expansive, bigger than we typically see or think about. Yes, 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 yes. Way bigger, way more. It transcends all limitations and exists in all dimensions. And he says, listen carefully, and I want you to listen carefully. No one has the power to create your experience. Nobody does. No one has the power to limit your experience. Only you. Only you. And nowhere in the laws of God has it ever been written that you must conform your experience to the choices of another. Huh? Listen, listen, listen. Nowhere in the laws of God has it ever been written that you must conform your experience to the choices of another. And yet, what do we do all the time? I look at this person, I look at this person, and I look at this person, and I assume that then I guess that's what I'm going to do. And then guess what? That's what you do. And you don't have to. You don't have to. Why? Because we're unlimited spirit. We can do whatever we want to. When you stand into that energy and that power, all of a sudden you realize, really? I can go start creating what I want to do and have some fun and a good time? And the answer is, well, duh. Of course you can. Right? Of course you can. Jesus says, in reality, you remain free to freely choose to be an embodiment of the Christ. That's what Jesus did. He embodied the Christ. Unlimited freedom. You are the one who can bless creation. Wouldn't it be fun just to walk around and bless everything that you saw and realize you were sending love and helping everything out? How fun would that be? That's a pretty good time. Not a bad gig. Sign me up. I'm good. Jesus says it begins when you are willing to assume responsibility for what you want to use time for. Huh? What? Yes. When you assume responsibility for what you want to use time for. So that begs the question, what do you want to use time for? Do you want to use time to be a victim? Be a victim. Do you want to use time to be a powerful creator? Be a powerful creator. Do you want to use your time to sit there and complain, moan, and groan about everything that's going on in the world right now? Go for it. Go for it. Nobody's going to stop you. Nobody. In case you haven't noticed, nobody stopped you yet. Or do you want to stand in your power and go, what could I do with this? Whoa. Right? That's what it is. Lighten up, have fun, enjoy it. That's what we're here to do. But we forget that. We get stuck in life, we get busy. But don't ever forget, it's your time, it's your life. What do you want to do with it? My challenge to you is just to ask yourself that question, what am I doing with my time? And are you happy doing it? If it's not putting a smile on your face and you're not having a good time, well, okay. you can kind of be over there if that's what you want to do. Or you can go, no, you know what? I think I want to have a good time and I want to go around blessing people and I want to go have the most amazing life I can possibly have. And I want to be around people that I love and I want to be around people that care about me. And I want to be me. I want to live this unique expression called me and have the power of God flow through me in the expression that I was meant to bring. You can do that. You can do it. In your own way. Nobody's stopping you from doing that. Nobody. Don't let anybody ever tell you you can't do that. Ever. Especially you. Especially you, because we're the ones that are telling ourselves that we can't do it, right? So just realize that's what's going on. In that section, he goes on to ask this question, and to me, it's one of the most powerful questions I'm going to start asking myself every single day, and I may suggest you do the same thing. What if you were to decide to create a self that sees itself as perfectly unlimited? What? Yeah. What if you were to decide to create a self that sees itself as perfectly unlimited. Because in truth, that's who you are. That's who you are. Yeah, but Mike, I don't understand. How does this work? I mean, look at me. Look at my life. Look what's going on right now. Do you see what's going on? He doesn't understand what's going on, because if he did, he wouldn't be asking me that question, right? That's what we want to do. There's a saying that goes, if you want to argue for your limitations, guess what? You can have them. You can have them. Or you could come over here and you could argue for your unlimitedness. You could stand. And you know what? You don't have to do it perfectly. It's not like you got to come out and go, "Rah!" and I got it. Because that certainly has not been my journey. It's not the way that it starts. It starts with just baby steps. It starts with all of a sudden going, maybe I feel this thing a little bit. Maybe there's some things I can do. Maybe I could start taking some classes. Maybe I could get involved. Maybe I could start understanding that, my thinking has a lot to do with my reality. And if maybe I started applying some spiritual principles they talk about at Unity, maybe I could do something with my life and I could start to change it. And maybe I don't have to do it perfectly. Maybe I could give myself permission to not do it perfectly. And maybe it's okay if it doesn't look like the way that Mike does it or anybody else do it. Maybe I've got my own way that I can walk this journey, and maybe that path will lead me back into my divinity and into this amazing relationship with God. Maybe it could be fun. Maybe it could be easy. Maybe this doesn't have to involve pain. Maybe. What would that be like? Something to think about? Something to play with? Yeah. What if you were to decide to create a self that sees itself as perfectly unlimited, and you stood for a minute in the idea of pure potentiality, and you started to create a life from that spot? All right, well, I'm going to have to rethink this now. Hold on. Yeah, it's like you get this massive board and you just erase it. And you go, hey, let's start from square one. Forget all the other stuff. Forget it. Go home and sit down and think about it. How do you really want your life to be? Don't sit there and start off with, yeah, Mike, but you got to take into consideration this, and this. Stop for a minute. Just stop. Give yourself permission to create a life that's perfectly unlimited. Trust yourself. There's a reason why Jesus said it starts off with the faith of a mustard seed. Why? Mustard seed's one of the smallest seeds that there are. And what does that mean? It means just start off with a little faith, a little. You don't need big faith, little mustard seed. That's why he used that as the example, right? So in the book, it's kind of funny because Jesus uses this example and he says, well, instead of saying, hey, I'm going to go see my family, and I thought this was so relevant because the holiday's coming up, and I have to admit when I read the story, I just went, been there, done that. So he says, what if I go see my family and I say, I know they're dysfunctional, but instead of just going, well, that's the way it is, what if instead you were to sit back and tell yourself, now remember, put yourself in that space of being unlimited. You could do anything that you want, but you are going to go spend time with your family, right? And so listen to what he says. What if instead you sat back and you told yourself, I am a perfectly unlimited being, perfectly unlimited. And I think I'll create a self who is an expression of the unlimited love of Christ. I'm going to go see my family, and I'm going to utilize time for beaming as much love to them as I can. For no other reason than it'll feel rather grand to do so. Because I am the embodiment of the Christ. And they may not know it, but it doesn't matter. I can enjoy it anyway. Do you see the difference? There's the different operating system. There is Jesus thinking completely differently than, honestly, I think at times. That's it. That's the Christ mind that we all have within us, and we all have access to it. That's what makes it so powerful. And then he goes on to say this idea, this thought of utilizing time for bringing as much love to them as I can. It's this incredible acknowledgement of the Christ within. But it takes time. It takes a minute. It takes practice. You mean I actually have to engage with this thing and play with it? Hello? Yeah, that's what you got to do. Yeah. But it can be easy, it can be light, it can be fun, you can have a good time with it. But it doesn't happen. It's not like, somebody's going to show up at your doorstep and go, well, here you go. You got to engage with it and play with it, right? I love the saying, I am the embodiment of the Christ. I will promise you this. You want to change your life? Say that one thing to yourself every single day. Walk around with that thought in your mind all day long and see how your life changes. It will change. I promise you. I am the embodiment of the Christ. If you were to really do that, you will really change. I promise you. No questions asked. Your life will change. So what could possibly stop that? So Jesus in the book starts talking about this thing called a blockage. And he calls it the obstacle of love's presence. And he asks the question, so what occurs in consciousness that seems to create the blockage, the obstacle to love's presence? What does that? He says, as you create a temporary perceived limitation. So it's our own perceived limitation. Perceived. Does it mean it's real? No. It's a perceived limitation. A way to call you to a certain quality of experience. There's a tendency to fall in the trap of identifying yourself with the constraints that you have set up from your unlimited freedom. What are we? We're unlimited spirit. But sometimes we trick ourselves into believing we're not. And when that happens, what you do is you set up what's called a temporary learning experience. How many people are in the middle of a temporary learning experience? I get it, right? We all have temporary learning experiences, right? Yeah. He goes on to say, when in your consciousness you can come to be identified with the boundaries of the constraints, you create an imprisonment. How many people are in an imprisonment right now? It's okay, you're still loved. You're loved. I got you. That's why we hold each other. We see the divinity in each other, even when we think we're in an imprisonment, right? That's what we do. That imprisonment is actually a complete illusion. And in reality, your unlimited self goes on experiencing anything it wants through all the dimensions of creation. So in other words, there's a part of you that's looking at this thing going, really? Come on. You're way more than this. Way more than this. You believe you're defined by the lines that you have drawn in the field of consciousness, which creates a construction, a density, a conflict. So you believe that there's a problem. You believe that there's a limitation. You believe that you can't do anything about what's going on, and the truth is you absolutely can, unless, of course, you're telling yourself you can't. Then you can't. That's how powerful that you are. That's how powerful your divinity is. This is occurring nowhere in your being, except in the part of you that has extended itself like a sunbeam from the sun into what you called time-space dimension. Now think about it. If you feel constrained in this dimension, it does not mean that you are constrained. It simply means that one little piece of you, one little aspect of you, is stopped, and your light is temporarily stopped having what it really is, which is this full expression of itself. But there's this little piece of you that's stuck. That's all it is. And if you trace that ray of light back to its source, so in other words, if you were really to spend the time in meditation and in prayer and really looked at who and what you are, you would find something brighter than 10,000 of your suns. Something far more vast than the sun that your lights, your physical universe, something so vast that out of it has come forth a multitude of universes. And that's who and what you are. In reality, that's who you are. That light of your soul, pure spirit, remains undefiled and unlimited. That tiny ray can become aware of the whole, and that is the process of awakening. Isn't that what we're doing? All of us are awakening. We all do it a little bit different. But that's what we're all doing. And this is what the journey is. This is what we do. We come down here, we get into these bodies, and we get busy, don't we? Life starts to happen. We start doing stuff. And we don't take the time, we don't slow down enough. We don't spend the time in prayer and meditation because we're busy with life. And then all of a sudden something hits us. Sometimes I refer to it as a spiritual 2x4, wakes us up, and then all of a sudden it goes, well, wait a minute. Something's going on in here. Maybe if I just slow down a little bit, take a look at it, spend some time with it, all of a sudden you start understanding these principles, these bigger spiritual principles which help us remember who and what we are. And so when we start hearing messages from Jesus, then all of a sudden you understand what he's talking about. In some respects, I keep going back to this. It's really a simple message. It's not super complicated. Honestly, you can boil it down to a couple of things. You're divine. You're connected to God. You can do anything you want. I think that's pretty simple. When you get right down to it, I think it's pretty simple. I don't think it's terribly complicated. And as a result of it, you can do a lot of cool stuff. And have a really good time, by the way. Really good time. Jesus ends the chapter, he says, ask yourself the following question. Am I fully committed to transforming my awareness from one who's been sleeping and perceiving myself as limited to space-time dimension, or am I committed to truly hearing this message from my brother who calls me to take up my cross and follow him? In other words, are you willing to follow his example? Are you willing to do what he did? Because we can all do it. Are you willing to do that? Just like Jesus did, just like the Fillmores listened and they started doing. He goes on to say, that is the cross of crucifixion, the heavy wooden cross that you've been carrying around that says, well, I'm struggling and trying to get to Christ consciousness, but maybe if I just got rid of my husband, maybe that would do it. Maybe that would help me become enlightened. Or perhaps if I moved to another location, that would do it. Or maybe there's this new spiritual technique out there, and maybe if I got really good at this one new spiritual technique, that would do it. That would open up everything into my own spiritual enlightenment and unfoldment. And once I start practicing that thing, then look out. Then that's the game changer. I have to admit I'm guilty as charged. I've dabbled. How many dabblers do I have out here? Yeah. We like to play, right? We like to go experience it. We like to look at different things. I love it. I'm not going to kid you. I love to do it. But the problem is when all of a sudden you look at something outside of yourself and say, there it is. Why? Because it's not outside of yourself. Your answers, everything that you need, are right here. Not Mike's heart. Everybody do this. Woof. Right? That's where your answers are. That's where all your answers are. So don't look outside of yourself. It's not outside of yourself. It's inside of yourself. That's where your answers are, and that's what Jesus is really saying. And then he ends the chapter. Do me a favor. Just close your eyes for a minute. I want you to feel this. Feel this. You are in the holiest of temples, yourself. You abide in the perfect moment for your transformation right here, right now. Nothing limits you at all, at any place or any time. And the very power that you've been using to try to convince yourself of your limitations is the exact same power that I used to overcome death. You can open your eyes. It's the same power that Jesus used to overcome death. Same exact power. And that's what he did with it. And then he finishes it and he says, there's no difference except for a wink of an eye, an intention, a commitment, a recognition. That is all. It's really, in reality, that's it. Nothing is impossible and nothing is unavailable to you. That's reality, folks. That's it. And so, in closing, I hope there was some nuggets in there for you. That material is simply, in my mind, just fabulous. I love it, and I hope you're enjoying it as well. And I invite you to go where your Spirit's asking you need to go. There's always expansion. There's always growth. There always is something more. Don't ever forget that. The question is, what is it for you? What does it look like for you? I don't know. Is it reaching out to a friend? Is it coming here and taking a class? Is it going out and serving your community? What is it? I don't know. What's your heart telling you need to do for your own expansion, for your own growth? And if you're really stuck and you can't figure it out, give me a call. We'll sit down and have a cup of coffee or maybe a beer. Maybe. Right? Just depends. But let's figure it out. Your journey is sacred to you. It's sacred. You are sacred. Don't ever forget that. Don't ever forget how sacred you are. Each and every one of you have within you an amazing gift for all of us. And I would just ask you to share it, and whatever that looks like. And I know many of you are. And for that, I am incredibly grateful for you all. So, I hope you have a wonderful day. Go out and play. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Enjoy the leaves and the color and the sun while we still have it. And I just want to close this with just saying how much I love you and how grateful I am for each and every one of you and how grateful I am for you being here. You make a difference to this human being. I want you to know that. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. God bless.